Welcome to the Spiritual Deep Dive in 5 podcast. So glad you could join us to spend some time reflecting on God and his love for each of us today. Make sure to like this video, hit the subscribe button, ring that bell. That way you'll never miss out on any of our content. The Spiritual Deep Dive podcast is posted Monday through Friday by Christ Church of Flagstaff here in Flagstaff, Arizona. And you can find more information about our church online at ccof.church. Thank you so much for watching, and we are so excited to see what God is going to do in your life because you are committed to spending time with him. When was the last time you went to the Sonic and got a delicious, refreshing cherry limeade? Well, for me, the answer was today. So glad you're here. Romans 12, we're still there, verse 3. If you haven't listened to the last couple of days, go listen to them. They're about verse 1, verse 2. Verse 3 says this, for by the grace given to me, by the cherry limeade given to me. That's what grace means in English, cherry limeades. I say to every one of you, do not think of yourself more highly than you ought, but rather think of yourself with sober judgment in accordance with the faith God has distributed to each of you. I find this metaphor, this picture so interesting. See, Paul is saying to a bunch of people who are part of a church just like ours, in a little bit different place, a lot of different history and time, don't be proud. Don't think of yourself more highly than you ought. How do you think of yourself? I mean, do you waver between everything's about you or you have no value? And I think both ways is that we go on this, whether we're very arrogant and prideful, or we think we're being very humble. And it's really a false humility because of our own insecurity. I think we kind of find ourselves in both of those extremes. I know I do at times. And I think both are a violation of what Paul is saying here, what he's suggesting. Don't think of yourself more highly than you ought. It really comes down to this. I had a friend years ago that would say, hey, this isn't the world. Or he'd say, no, this isn't you. And this isn't the world, meaning we don't all revolve around you. You're not the center of the universe, but I think I am sometimes. And this metaphor, he says, don't think of yourself more highly than you ought. Rather think of yourself with sober judgment. It's this metaphor that's suggesting intoxication. And maybe what Paul saw in the church in Rome is what he sees of the church in Flagstaff or wherever you're at is a lot of egoholics. And he's not talking about alcoholics here. He's talking about egoholics. The ego is quite intoxicating, isn't it? And ego is the thing that keeps us thinking of ourselves more than we ought to, more highly, or even when we think of ourselves more lowly in a strange, counterintuitive way, we're just putting ourselves first because ego is intoxicating. It feels good to be in charge. It feels good to be the center of attention. And this whole passage, Romans 12, is a very practical look at unity and diversity and this whole idea that be patient, be kind. And it's this idea that the Christian faith is essentially a corporate experience. And an egoholic has no room for the corporate experience. It's not about family. It's not about life together. It's about self. That's not the Christian faith. That's not what Paul is instructing believers to live like. Don't be an egoholic. Be a servant. Be about others. And we're going to, these next few days, look at the rest of this chapter. We're going through the whole chapter here in our deep dive in 5. So share it, like it, send us some feedback. We'd love that. How do you think of yourself? And how can you tell if you're an egoholic? Well, really, who do you think about the most? Yourself or other people? And if it's yourself, then friends, these next few weeks, few days, go through and just look at these statements Paul gives us of how we can overcome the intoxication of self. Battery's low.